Do you want to learn something nobody's ever told you? You're trapped. Yes, you built this prison yourself, brick by brick, with every choice guided by what others might think, with every action you held back for fear of failure, with every fake smile that stifled your urge to scream. Do you feel that oppressive weight on your chest? It isn't anxiety or stress. It's the unbearable burden of a life lived for others, crafted to satisfy an audience that never even bought a ticket to watch you perform. And the cruelest fact? Nobody asked you to make this sacrifice. Nobody asked you to surrender your freedom, your essence, your authenticity, but you did it willingly. You chained yourself to others' expectations, trading your identity for fleeting applause, for momentary approval. Now, looking inside what remains of you, what is truly yours, and what was molded by fear, insecurity, and a sick need to fit in. They sold you the idea that control was the answer. They convinced you that if you managed every detail of your life, everything would turn out perfectly. But here's the truth nobody dares confess. Absolute control is a lie, a mental trap designed to keep you busy, distracted, and disconnected from what really matters. The more you chase control, the deeper you sink into anxiety, into silent despair, into a life you never finish living because you're always preparing for something that never arrives. Have you ever wondered why you still feel an inexplicable void despite having, on the surface, everything? It's because nothing you own is truly yours. Your achievements, your relationships, even your thoughts are tainted by the constant worry of how they'll be judged by others. And the more you seek external validation, the further you drift from your center, from that authentic essence you once recognized, but now barely remember. Michel de Montaigne, in his quiet 16th century tower, saw clearly what you refuse to accept today. Detachment isn't indifference, but the only path to real freedom. He realized that we're not imprisoned by external circumstances, but by our own mad attempt to control the uncontrollable, by obsession with pleasing others, fitting in, and avoiding criticism at all costs. But what if I told you that the detachment you fear is exactly the key to unlocking your freedom? What would happen if, for a moment, you released the rope you're gripping so tightly, the same rope you think sustains you, but which in reality suffocates you? Here's the paradox. The more you try to control, the less control you actually have. The more you seek to please, the less authentic you become. The more you resist change, the harder it hits you when it inevitably arrives. The world doesn't bend to your will, and never will. Accepting that isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Life, in all its chaos and unpredictability, demands something simple yet terrifying. Let go. Let go of your need for approval. Let go of your fear of failure. Let go of the false identity you built to shield yourself from others' judgments. Imagine for 1 second what would happen if you stopped worrying about what people think. Who would you be without that constant fear? What would you do knowing you'd never be judged? That version of you, free from mental chains, is who you truly are. There's something darker behind this uncomfortable truth. You're afraid to let go of control because deep down you don't know who you'll be without those chains. You fear discovering that your identity has been diluted so much by the external that if you released it all, nothing might remain. But here's the brutal, freeing truth that Montaigne whispered centuries ago. Only by letting go of what you are not can you finally see what you are. The freedom you seek lies on the other side of the fear that now paralyzes you. It's not in a self-help manual, nor in motivational platitudes, nor in any mystical secret. It's here, in this very moment, waiting for you to find the courage to say, I no longer need anyone's approval. I no longer need to control the uncontrollable. I no longer need to pretend to be someone I'm not. So tell me, are you ready to release your grip, or will you keep clinging to control, knowing that every day you remain binds you further from your true essence? This is only the beginning of a journey you may not want to take, but desperately need, and the choice is yours alone. Will you remain imprisoned in a golden cage you constructed yourself? Or will you risk the unknown, leap into a freedom that may terrify you, but will at last make you feel alive? Welcome to the philosophy of detachment, to the quest for an inner freedom that will overturn everything you thought you knew about yourself. The path is unsettling, but believe me, the only thing more terrifying than stepping toward that freedom is staying exactly where you are. You've been taught that chasing goals is the most important thing. But what if most of those goals were never truly yours? You spent your life climbing ladders others built without questioning if you wanted to reach the top. And now that you're there, what do you see? The vista you dreamed of, or a warped reflection of someone else's design? We're obsessed with the idea of success, convinced that achieving certain milestones will finally bring us peace. But have you ever stopped to ask what success really means, and above all, whose success it is? Perhaps you've already attained many of those goals that were supposed to make you happy. Studying the right subject, working in the right place, associating with the right people. Yet you still feel that something is missing. That restless awakening at night is the voice you've ignored too long. Your authentic self demanding to be heard. Montaigne, in his voluntary retreat from the world's noise, discovered something both revelatory and dangerous. True success doesn't resemble what they sold you. It isn't a social rank, an accumulation of goods, or external recognition. Genuine success, the kind few dare to pursue, is living fully aligned with your own nature. But to do that, you must know who you really are, beyond the mask and the expectations, beyond that false self you present every day. You've become so used to performing that you don't even notice the immense effort you expend to sustain an image that isn't you. The mind is relentless. Even if you try to ignore it, something within you will always rebel against the facade. Want an uncomfortable but liberating truth? As long as you hide behind characters, you'll never taste true tranquility. Stress, anxiety, and that hollow emptiness are simply the logical outcome of a life lived for others. Yet, Montaigne made it clear, most people prefer the security of a miserable existence over the risk of embracing the uncertainty of being themselves. They choose a half-life of crumbs of happiness rather than a full life of genuine discovery. And you, which path are you on? Are you among those who dare to find themselves, or among those who remain comfortably numbed by routine? Routine is a potent anesthetic. It keeps you busy, distracted, locked in a loop that numbs your will. But what you don't see is the steep price of that illusion of security, the total loss of your inner freedom. Many mistake freedom for doing whatever they please, But freedom is something much deeper. It's the courage to be true to yourself, even if it means challenging expectations, breaking patterns, and sometimes disappointing those you love most. Perhaps you think, if I'm authentic, I might lose everything I've built. Here lies another paradox. If you must pretend to keep what you have, then it was never yours in the first place. True relationships, meaningful projects, and accomplishments worth having survive authenticity perfectly. Only by being genuine can you discover what really matters and what was merely taking up space. You have far less to lose and far more to gain than you imagine. But first, you must take the leap into a life you don't fully control, but that at least will be truly your own. Again, Montaigne reminds us, detachment doesn't mean abandoning what you love, but understanding that only from absolute freedom can you love and build authentically. Anything born of anxiety and attachment will end up owning you. Here's the message nobody tells you. Most people live in fear of losing what they have because they never dared to find out what would happen if they lost it. They cling desperately to relationships, jobs, and prefabricated identities, forgetting that real life begins when you stop clinging to what doesn't represent you. So, what will you do now? Will you drift through life by inertia, too afraid to discover who you are? Or will you summon the courage to leave the familiar behind and dive into the uncertainty that terrifies you but holds the promise of meeting your truest self, beyond control, approval, and fear? This is the path Montaigne walked from his silent tower, and it lies before you now. Will you dare to follow it, or will you remain a spectator of your own existence? The answer is yours alone. Let's shift focus to a parallel insight. Storytelling isn't just a vehicle for sharing knowledge or emotions. It's a mirror of our search for identity. When we tell stories, consciously or not, we position ourselves before a reflection of who we are or who we long to be. Narrative becomes a powerful tool for self-exploration, where each character or situation projects our deepest desires or hidden fears. We often forget that fiction is an emotional simulator, letting us live many destinies without real risk. In times of collective uncertainty or crisis, stories grow even more vital. They offer refuge and catharsis, but also the boldness we rarely dare to show in everyday life, inviting us to break imaginary boundaries and explore radically different perspectives. Here's a fascinating point. The stories we tell ourselves shape our daily choices. The inner narrative you cultivate may determine how you interpret external reality, filtering your experiences and invisibly yet continually guiding the course of your life. Storytelling's power is not only social or cultural but deeply personal, capable of transforming present and future through the words you choose to define yourself. This raises an even more provocative question. What if rewriting your internal narrative could rewrite your destiny? It's not far-fetched to think many people live trapped in inherited stories that don't belong entirely to them. Tales of failure, imposed roles, self-limiting beliefs accepted as unchangeable truths. Claiming your own narrative then becomes a profoundly revolutionary act, recasting yourself not as a victim but as a protagonist with agency, able to reframe the past and envision new futures. Moreover, there's an intriguing phenomenon. The story you tell yourself not only shapes your actions but also how others perceive you. A well-crafted self-narrative can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, influencing relationships, opportunities, and the way the world responds to you, as if that silent inner script is being performed unconsciously by everyone. Consciously crafting your story is thus not only introspection but a life strategy. On the other hand, we must embrace contradiction in our personal narrative. We aren't linear beings, and our stories shouldn't be either. A rich narrative includes dark zones, shifts, contradictions, and ambiguities. It's an embrace of our humanity. The best stories aren't those where everything fits perfectly, but those that leave open questions, moments of discomfort, flashes of truth amid confusion. It's within that imperfection that the beauty of storytelling and of life itself resides. And perhaps the most poetic truth is that we never stop rewriting ourselves. Every conversation, encounter, and silence adds a new line to our unfinished text. We are perpetual authors of a story in progress, sometimes consciously, sometimes not. And every choice, however small, sculpts a new version of who we are. If you've read this far, you may have realized something powerful. We aren't secondary characters in stories written by others. We are authors in an ongoing creative process. And here's the most fascinating part. There are no final drafts. Every day can be a new page, and also a way to rewrite the ones before. What seemed like a sad chapter yesterday can become the turning point before rebirth today. Perhaps this is the great alchemy of the human story. Turning scars into symbols, mistakes into plot twists, silences into suspense. But beware, here comes the final twist. What if the true art of living is not knowing exactly what story we're telling? In uncertainty lies the beauty of not knowing whether we're in a comedy, a tragedy, or an epic. Sometimes the most powerful stories aren't those that end with thunderous applause, but those that leave us eager to keep writing because it's not over yet. And now we've reached the end, though endings are just disguised beginnings. If any of this resonated with you, subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next chapter, and drop the words, "I rewrite my story," in the comments. That way, I'll know you made it here, and that you're part of this community of conscious, curious, and brave storytellers. See you in the next episode, where you might not find all the answers, but you'll certainly leave with better questions. Until then, close the book, but don't put it away, because the next paragraph could change everything.